Thought it'd be easy, Brad?
The fence post wobbled like a drunk on New Year's Eve, and I was elbow deep in concrete mix when Angela's voice cut through the evening air like a rusty blade. Oh, my ex was better in bed than you'll ever be. I still think about him. I froze, trowel halfway to the post hole. Well, nothing like a public performance review to end a Tuesday. The Hendersons next door had their kitchen window cracked open, and Mrs. Peterson was suddenly very interested in watering her already drowning petunias. Angela had always been theatrical, but this was Broadway-level drama for our quiet suburban street. "Are you even listening to me, Brad?" she continued, her voice dripping with venom. "This whole thing with my husband is getting ridiculous. He's suspicious." "Brad, not me. I'm Nick, her husband of 12 years. Brad was apparently the star of tonight's show. I stayed crouched behind the fence, concrete slowly hardening on my hands. Through the slats, I watched Angela pace our perfectly manicured backyard in her power suit, phone pressed to her ear, like she was closing $1 million deal instead of discussing her affair. "No, he doesn't know anything concrete," she said. "Nick's too busy playing with his tools and pretending he's still relevant. God, sometimes I wonder what I ever saw in him. The concrete was getting heavy, but I couldn't move. This was better than cable television." "Meet me at the corner in 10 minutes, Angela said. "We need to talk about our next step." Our next step. How considerate of them to include me in their planning process. Angela disappeared into the house, and I heard the front door slam 5 minutes later. I dropped the trowel and crept around to the front yard, staying low behind the hedges. A silver BMW idled at the corner. Not a car I recognized. But then again, I'd been too busy working overtime at the construction site to keep track of my wife's social calendar. Angela slid into the passenger seat, and through the windshield, I got my first look at Brad. Younger than me, definitely. Slicked back hair, the kind of guy who probably used more hair products than Angela. The BMW pulled away, leaving me standing in my own driveway like an idiot. I walked back to the fence post, now permanently crooked thanks to the concrete setting while I'd been playing detective. Perfect metaphor for my marriage, really. The next morning, Angela was all smiles and coffee kisses, asking about my day like she hadn't been planning my emotional execution 12 hours earlier. I played along, watching her perform the role of devoted wife with Oscar-worthy dedication. "I'll be working late again tonight," she said, adjusting her blazer in the hallway mirror. "Big project at the security firm. You know how it is." "Sure," I said. "I know exactly how it is." She missed the sarcasm entirely, too busy checking her lipstick to notice the edge in my voice. After she left, I did something I'd never done in 12 years of marriage. I searched her things. Not proud of it, but desperate times and all that. Her home office was locked, but I'd installed that lock myself. Amazing how a screwdriver in 5 minutes can unlock more than just doors. Her laptop was password protected, but Angela had always been predictable. Her mother's maiden name plus her birth year. Bingo. The email trail was like reading a romance novel written by someone with no imagination. Brad from the security firm, her subordinate, apparently. They'd been meeting for 3 months. Hotels, restaurants, even a weekend trip to the mountains that she'd told me was a work conference. But the real treasure was in her purse. A second phone. A cheap burner that Brad had apparently left in my truck last week when I'd helped him move some equipment. The irony was beautiful. The phone was full of texts that would make a sailor blush, photos I definitely didn't want to see, and a conversation from yesterday that made my blood run cold. "Nick's getting suspicious," Angela had texted. "Maybe it's time to speed things up." "What do you mean?" Brad had replied. "The divorce. I want him gone. You said your friend Monica could help make him look bad." Monica, Angela's best friend since college. The woman who'd been coming to our barbecues for 5 years, who'd helped us move into this house, who'd consoled me when my father died. Monica was in on this too. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the evidence of my wife's betrayal, and felt something cold and calculating settle in my chest. Angela wanted to play games? Fine, but she'd picked the wrong opponent. I spent the day making preparations. First, I called in sick to work, something I'd done maybe 3 times in 10 years. Then I drove to the bank and emptied our joint savings account. Not illegal, since my name was on it too. Next, I visited my lawyer, a sharp woman named Kathy who'd handled my father's estate. "How much evidence do you have?" Kathy asked, reviewing the photos I'd taken of Angela's messages. "Enough to bury her," I said. "Good. But we need to be smart about this. No confrontations, no dramatic scenes. Let her hang herself. That evening, I was waiting in the driveway when Angela came home at 11:30, her hair slightly messed up and her lipstick gone. "Working late again?" I asked. "You know how it is," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Big project." "I'm sure it is," I said. "Angela, we need to talk." She froze, and for a second, I saw real fear in her eyes. Then the mask slipped back into place. "Can it wait until morning? I'm exhausted." "I bet you are," I said. "Must be tiring, juggling two relationships." The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out the burner phone and held it up. "This fell out of your purse." Angela's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Then, suddenly, she went on the offensive. "You went through my things?" she shrieked. "How dare you? That's a violation of my privacy." "Your privacy?" I laughed, and it came out harsh and bitter. "You've been screwing your coworker for 3 months, planning to divorce me with the help of my supposed friend, and you're worried about privacy? It's not what you think," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "It's exactly what I think," I said. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" Angela straightened, and I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with disappear completely. In her place stood a stranger with cold eyes and a calculating smile. "What are we going to do?" she repeated. "Nick, honey, who do you think people are going to believe? Me, a successful manager at a respected firm, or you, a construction worker with anger issues?" "Anger issues? Oh, yes," she said, warming to her theme. "Everyone's going to hear about your temper, your drinking, how you've been emotionally harsh for years. Monica's already started spreading the word." I stared at her, seeing clearly for the first time in months. "You've been planning this for a while." 3 months, she said proudly. "Ever since I realized that I deserved better than a blue-collar nobody who peeks at fixing fence posts." The fence post. Still crooked in our backyard, a monument to the moment my marriage died. "Well," I said, surprisingly calm, "I guess that settles it." I turned and walked to my truck, grabbing the overnight bag I'd packed earlier. "Where are you going?" Angela called after me. "Somewhere I'm not second best," I said. As I drove away, I passed the silver BMW parked 2 blocks down. Brad was waiting for the all-clear to come celebrate. I rolled on down my window and gave him a friendly wave. He looked confused, but waved back. Poor bastard had no idea what he'd gotten himself into. The Riverside Tavern wasn't much to look at. Sticky floors, neon beer signs, and the kind of regulars who minded their own business. Perfect for a man whose life had just imploded. I'd been nursing the same beer for an hour, staring at Angela's burner phone, and planning my next move. Rough day? I looked up to see Deshaun Williams sliding onto the adjacent bar stool. We'd been sparring partners at Murphy's boxing gym for 3 years, and he was one of the few people I trusted completely. "Rough life," I said. "What brings you to this fine establishment?" "Heard through the grapevine that you might need a friend," Deshaun said, signaling the bartender. "Monica's been making the rounds at the gym, telling everyone who will listen about your problems at home." Of course she had. I should have expected Angela's character assassination to start immediately. "What kind of problems?" I asked. Deshaun looked uncomfortable. "The kind that make people cross the street when they see you coming. She's saying you've been hitting Angela, drinking too much, threatening her friends." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "And people believe her? Some do. Monica's got away with words, and she's been Angela's friend forever. People figure she'd know." "What about you?" Deshaun shrugged. "I've been taking punches from you for 3 years. If you were a violent drunk, I'd know it. Plus, you hit like my grandmother." Despite everything, I cracked a smile. "Thanks for the vote of confidence. So what's the real story?" I filled him in on Angela's affair, Monica's involvement, and the coordinated campaign to destroy my reputation. Deshaun listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. "That's cold," he said when I finished. "Even for Angela. You never liked her. She always looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe," Deshaun said. "But I figured that was just her being uptight. This is different. This is evil." Before I could respond, the tavern door opened, and Monica herself walked in. She was with 2 women I recognized from Angela's work, Sarah and Jennifer, both from the security firm's accounting department. They grabbed a table in the corner, but Monica's eyes found mine immediately. She whispered something to her companions, and they both turned to stare at me with expressions of disgust and fear. Monica pulled out her phone and started typing furiously. She's probably updating Angela on your location, Deshawn observed. Let her, I said. I'm not hiding. But Monica wasn't done. She stood up, walked over to our section of the bar, and started talking loudly enough for everyone to hear. I can't believe they let people like that in here, she said to Sarah. Angela's terrified to go home. She had to get a restraining order, you know. A restraining order? That was news to me, and probably news to the courts, too, since I hadn't been served with anything. She's been covering for him for years, Monica continued, her voice carrying across the room. The bruises, the threats. She finally got the courage to leave him, and now he's stalking her. The bartender was looking at me with suspicion now. A few other patrons had turned to stare. Monica's performance was Academy Award material. I stood up, and Monica immediately stepped back, pulling out her phone like she was going to call emergency. Easy there, Nick, she said loudly. We don't want any trouble. Neither do I said calmly. I just wanted to ask you something, Monica. When did you decide to destroy my marriage? Was it before or after Angela started sleeping with Brad? Monica's face went white, but she recovered quickly. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't, I said. Just like you don't know about the burner phone or the hotel receipts or the photos they've been sending each other. You're delusional, Monica said, but her voice wavered. Everyone knows you've been having problems. The only problem I'm having, I said, is figuring out why my wife's best friend would help her cheat. What's in it for you, Monica? She turned and walked quickly back to her table, but the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted. People were looking at her now, too, wondering what she might be hiding. Deshawn and I finished our beers and left, but not before I made sure to tip the bartender generously and shake hands with a few regulars. Let them see that the dangerous Nick was actually pretty normal. What's the plan? Deshawn asked as we stood in the parking lot. Phase 1 is damage control, I said. I need people to see that Monica's lying. Phase 2 is gathering more evidence. Phase 3 is making sure Angela and Brad get exactly what they deserve. What about Monica? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Monica gets special treatment. She started this war. She's going to finish it. The next morning, I drove to Angela's office building. I knew her schedule. She had a standing meeting with her boss every Wednesday at 9. I parked across the street and waited. At 8:45, the silver BMW pulled into the parking lot. Brad got out first, straightening his tie and checking his reflection in the car window. Then Angela emerged, smoothing her skirt and looking around nervously. They walked into the building separately, maintaining the pretense of professionalism. But I'd seen enough. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. My phone rang as I was documenting their little charade. Kathy, my lawyer. I've got good news and bad news, she said. The good news is that Angela hasn't filed for divorce yet, which means she's probably still planning her strategy. The bad news is that she did file a police report claiming you've been threatening her. Police report? Nothing formal, just a complaint. But it's on record now. She's building a paper trail. What do I do? Keep your distance, document everything, and whatever you do, don't give her any ammunition. No confrontations, no angry phone calls, nothing she can use against you. I hung up and watched Angela and Brad through the building's glass lobby. They were standing close together, his hand on her back in a gesture that was definitely not professional. Keep my distance? Sorry, Kathy, but sometimes you have to get your hands dirty. I drove to Brad's used car lot on the other side of town. Honest Brad's pre-owned vehicles. The kind of place where the cars had more miles than honesty. Brad's office was a converted trailer with his name painted on the door in gold letters. I walked around the lot, checking out the inventory. Most of the cars were overpriced junk, but Brad had a few nice vehicles in the back, including a red Corvette that was probably his personal ride. Can I help you? A salesman approached, all smiles and cheap cologne. Just looking, I said. That Corvette's nice. Belongs to the owner? That's Mr. Peterson's baby, the salesman said proudly. He's very particular about it. Peterson. So Brad's last name was Peterson. Good to know. Must do well for himself, I said. Oh yes, Mr. Peterson's very successful. Expanding the business. Talking about opening another lot across town. Expanding with what money, I wondered. Unless Angela was planning to finance his dreams with our divorce settlement. I spent another hour at the lot, gathering information. Brad employed 6 people, had been in business for 4 years, and according to the salesman's chatter, had recently started investing in security technology thanks to his girlfriend's expertise. His girlfriend. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. That evening, I drove past our house. My house, technically, since I was still paying the mortgage. Angela's car was in the driveway, but so was Monica's. Through the living room window, I could see them sitting on the couch, probably planning their next move. I parked down the street and waited. An hour later, Monica left, but instead of going home, she drove to the Riverside Tavern. Interesting. I followed her inside, staying at the opposite end of the bar. Monica ordered a drink and immediately started chatting with the bartender, the same one who'd been suspicious of me the night before. I feel terrible about what happened yesterday, I heard her say. That man used to be married to my best friend. She's finally free of him, but he's been following her around making threats. The bartender nodded sympathetically. Guys like that don't know when to quit. The police are involved now, Monica continued. But you know how these things go. By the time they do something, it might be too late. She was good, I had to give her that. Planting seeds, building a narrative, making sure everyone saw me as the villain in her story. But Monica had made one mistake. She'd underestimated me. I waited until she went to the bathroom, then approached the bartender. Excuse me, I said quietly. I couldn't help but overhear that woman talking about her friend's ex-husband. The dangerous one? The bartender nodded. Real piece of work, apparently. That's interesting, I said, because I saw her having coffee with him this morning. Looked pretty friendly for someone who's supposed to be terrified. The bartender's expression shifted slightly. You sure about that? Positive. They were at the Starbucks on Main Street, holding hands across the table. Made me wonder if maybe the story's not as simple as she's making it sound. I left a 20 on the bar and walked out, leaving the bartender to ponder the inconsistencies in Monica's tale. Phase 1 of my counterattack was complete. Now it was time to get serious. The beauty of working construction for 15 years is that you learn to think 3 steps ahead. Every project requires planning, patience, and the ability to see how all the pieces fit together. Destroying my wife's life would require the same skills, just with higher stakes. I spent Thursday morning at the courthouse, filing my own divorce papers. Kathy had prepared everything. Irreconcilable differences, division of assets, and a request for spousal support. Angela wanted to play victim? Fine. Let her explain to a judge why she deserved half of everything while she was screwing her coworker. This is going to get ugly, Kathy warned as I signed the papers. She's going to fight dirty. She already is, I said. At least now it's official. Next stop was the security firm where Angela worked. I'd never visited her office before. She'd always said it would be inappropriate for a construction worker to hang around her professional environment. Now I understood why. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of place where everyone wore suits and spoke in corporate buzzwords. I felt out of place in my work clothes, but that was the point. I wanted to be memorable. The receptionist looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. Can I help you? I'm here to see my wife, I said. Angela Martinez. I brought her lunch. I held up a bag from the Italian place she loved, the one where she used to take me for our anniversary. The receptionist's expression softened slightly. Let me call up to her office. I watched her dial, saw her face change as she spoke quietly into the phone. When she hung up, the professional smile was strained. I'm sorry, but Mrs. Martinez is in meetings all afternoon. She can't see visitors. That's okay, I said loudly enough for the other people in the lobby to hear. Just tell her that Nick stopped by, her husband. Tell her I hope she's feeling better after last night. The receptionist nodded, clearly uncomfortable. I left the lunch bag on her desk and walked out, making sure to greet everyone I passed with a friendly smile and wave. Let Angela explain to her coworkers why her husband was delivering lunch if she was supposedly afraid of him. From there, I drove to Murphy's boxing gym. Word of my domestic issues had apparently spread because the place went quiet when I walked in. Even Tommy Murphy, the owner, looked uncomfortable. Nick, he said carefully, how you doing? Better than expected, I said. Mind if I use the heavy bag? I need to work off some stress. I spent an hour pounding the bag, aware that everyone was watching me for signs of the violent behavior Monica had described. Instead, I kept my combinations clean and controlled, helped a couple of younger guys with their form, and made sure to thank Tommy before I left. You're welcome here any time, Tommy said, and I could tell he meant it. Don't let the gossips get to you. I won't, I said. But Tommy, if anyone asks about my character, I hope you'll tell them the truth. Always do, he said. That evening, I put phase 2 into action. I drove to the hotel where Angela and Brad had been meeting, a mid-range place near the interstate, the kind of spot where traveling businessmen wouldn't look twice at a cheating couple. The desk clerk was a college-aged kid who looked bored out of his mind. I approached with a friendly smile and a $50 bill. I need a favor, I said. My wife's been acting strange lately, and I think she might be having an affair. I found receipts from this hotel. Is there any way you could tell me if she's been here? The kid looked at the 50, then at me. I'm not supposed to give out guest information. I understand, I said, but I'm not asking for details, just confirmation. Her name's Angela Martinez, and she's probably been here with a guy named Brad Peterson. Another 50 joined the first one on the counter. What do they look like? The kid asked. I described them both, and his eyes lit up with recognition. Oh yeah, I remember them. They've been coming in every Tuesday and Thursday for like 2 months. Always pay cash, always leave separately. Bingo. I thanked him and left, but not before getting his name and shift schedule. If this went to court, I'd need witnesses. Friday morning brought an interesting development. I was having coffee at the diner near my temporary apartment when my phone rang. Angela, calling from her work number. We need to talk, she said without preamble. I thought you were afraid of me, I replied. Isn't that what you told the police? Don't be ridiculous. Can you meet me for lunch? Where? Rosario's, 1 o'clock. Rosario's was the Italian place where I'd bought her lunch the day before. Interesting choice. I arrived 15 minutes early and chose a table with a clear view of the entrance. Angela walked in at exactly 1 o'clock, looking around nervously before spotting me. She'd dressed carefully, conservative suit, minimal makeup, the picture of a respectable businesswoman. Thank you for coming, she said, sitting across from me. Wouldn't miss it, I said. How's Brad? She flinched but recovered quickly. I don't know what you think you know, but I know you've been screwing him at the Riverside Inn every Tuesday and Thursday for 2 months, I interrupted. I know Monica's been helping you spread lies about me. I know you filed a false police report. Should I continue? Angela's face went pale, but she leaned forward, lowering her voice. Listen to me very carefully, Nick. You're going to drop this divorce nonsense, and you're going to disappear quietly. If you don't, things are going to get very bad for you. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You think you're so smart playing detective, but you have no idea what you're up against. Monica has connections you can't imagine. One phone call from her, and you'll lose your job, your reputation, everything. What kind of connections? Angela smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. The kind that can make a man disappear from polite society entirely. Monica's ex-husband is a police detective. Her brother works for the state licensing board. Her cousin runs the biggest construction company in the county. Now I understood. This wasn't just about an affair. This was about power, influence, and the ability to destroy someone completely. So here's what's going to happen, Angela continued. You're going to withdraw the divorce papers, sign over your half of the house, and move somewhere far away. In return, we'll let you keep what's in your bank account and your truck. And if I refuse, then you'll find out just how creative Monica can be when she wants to ruin someone. I sat back, pretending to consider her offer. In reality, I was memorizing every word, filing away the threats for future use. I need time to think about it, I said finally. You have until Monday, Angela said, standing up. After that, the gloves come off. She left without another word, but I stayed to finish my coffee. The waitress, an older woman named Betty, who'd been working at Rosario's for 20 years, came over to refill my cup. Excuse me for saying so, honey, but that woman seemed pretty upset, Betty said. Everything okay? Just working through some marriage problems, I said. Nothing that can't be handled. Well, for what it's worth, she was in here last week with some young man. Didn't look like marriage counseling to me, if you know what I mean. I left Betty a generous tip and walked out with a spring in my step. Angela thought she held all the cards, but she'd just made a crucial mistake. She'd shown me her hand, now it was time to show her mine. That weekend, I put the final pieces of my plan into motion. I drove to 3 different electronics stores, buying small recording devices and wireless cameras. Then I visited a private investigator I'd found online, a former cop named Jim Bradley, who specialized in cheating spouses. I don't usually take cases this far along, Jim said, reviewing the evidence I'd already gathered. You've done most of the work yourself. I need it documented professionally, I said. Court-admissible evidence, witness statements, the whole package. That's going to cost you. Money's not an issue. Jim quoted me a price that would drain most of my savings, but it was worth it. By Monday morning, I'd have enough evidence to bury Angela, Brad, and Monica so deep they'd need a search party to find their reputations. Sunday evening, I was sitting in my temporary apartment, reviewing my strategy when Deshaun called. "You need to get down to Murphy's," he said. "There's been some trouble." I found the gym's front window smashed, graffiti spray painted across the brick wall. "Wife beater," in red letters, visible from the street. Tommy was standing in the doorway, looking disgusted. "Happened sometime this morning," he said. "Cops think it was random vandalism, but I know better." "I'm sorry, Tommy. This is because of me." "Heck no, it's not," Tommy said firmly. "This is because of whoever's trying to frame you. And Nick, they just made a big mistake." "How's that?" Tommy pointed to a small camera mounted under the eaves. "Security system went in last month. We got the whole thing on video." The footage was grainy, but clear enough. A woman in dark clothing, face partially hidden by a baseball cap, spray painting the wall at 3 a.m. But when she turned toward the camera, the streetlight caught her features clearly. Monica. "I'll make copies," Tommy said. "This goes to the cops tomorrow." I thanked him and drove home, feeling the pieces of my plan clicking into place. Angela's ultimatum was tomorrow. She expected me to cave, to slink away defeated and humiliated. Instead, I was going to give her a war she'd never forget. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything seem possible. I'd spent the weekend preparing for this moment, and now it was time to execute the plan that would change everything. I started by calling in sick to work again, then drove to the courthouse to meet with Kathy. She had news that made my morning even brighter. "The private investigator you hired is very thorough," she said, spreading photographs across her desk. Angela and Brad at the hotel, entering and leaving separately. Bank records showing cash withdrawals that matched the hotel dates. And this is the interesting part. Monica's been making regular deposits to her account. Always in cash. Always the day after Angela's hotel visits. She's being paid? Looks like it. Angela's been funding Monica's character assassination campaign. I studied the photographs, feeling a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. What about the vandalism at the gym? Even better. The police reviewed the security footage this morning. Monica's been charged with criminal mischief and filing a false report. Turns out she's the one who's been spreading the rumors about you being violent. When will she be arrested? Already happened, about an hour ago. Perfect timing. I thanked Kathy and drove to Angela's office building, arriving just as the morning rush was ending. I positioned myself across the street and waited. At 11:30, Angela's boss, a stern-looking woman in her 50s, came storming out of the building. She was followed by Angela and Brad, both looking like they'd been hit by a truck. I pulled out my phone and called Angela's direct line. "What do you want?" she snapped. "Just wondering how your morning's going," I said pleasantly. "You sound stressed." "You bastard, you did this?" "Did what?" "I've been sitting in my truck all morning, watching your boyfriend get fired." There was a long pause. "How did you know about Brad losing his job? Lucky guess." "What happened, Angela? Did your boss find out about your little affair?" "This isn't over," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "You're right," I agreed. "It's not." I hung up and watched Angela and Brad argue in the parking lot. Their body language told the whole story, pointing fingers, raised voices, the kind of fight that happens when people realize their carefully laid plans are falling apart. My phone rang again. This time it was Monica, calling from what was probably the police station. "You son of a witch," she said. "You set me up." "Actually, you set yourself up," I replied. "I just documented it." "How's jail treating you?" "This isn't over. I have friends, connections. I can destroy you." "Funny thing about connections," I said. "They tend to disappear when people find out you're a liar and a vandal. But hey, good luck with that." I ended the call and drove to the Riverside Tavern, where I'd arranged to meet Deshaun for lunch. The bartender, the same one who'd heard Monica's sob story, greeted me with an apologetic smile. "Hey, I owe you an apology," he said. "Heard about that woman getting arrested. Makes me wonder what else she was lying about." "People see what they want to see," I said diplomatically. "No hard feelings." Deshaun arrived 20 minutes later, grinning from ear to ear. "Man, the whole gym's talking about Monica getting perp-walked this morning. Tommy's beside himself with joy." "It's not over yet," I said. "Angela still thinks she can win this." "What's your next move?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Meet me at the lakeside cabin. We need to talk. Come alone. A. The lakeside cabin belonged to Monica's family. I'd been there once, years ago, for a 4th of July party. It was isolated, surrounded by woods, the kind of place where people could have private conversations without being overheard. You're not seriously thinking of going, Deshaun said when I showed him the message. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words, brother. But I was curious. Angela was desperate now, backed into a corner with her lover unemployed and her best friend in jail. Desperate people made mistakes, and I wanted to see what kind of mistake Angela would make. I drove to the cabin alone, despite Deshaun's protests. The place looked exactly as I remembered. Weathered wood siding, a sagging porch, windows that probably hadn't been cleaned in years. Angela's car was parked out front, along with Brad's BMW. I found them on the back porch overlooking the lake. Angela had changed out of her business attire into jeans and a sweater. Brad looked like he'd aged 10 years since morning. Thanks for coming, Angela said as I climbed the porch steps. Wouldn't miss it. Nice place for a strategy session. We want to make a deal, Brad said, speaking for the first time. I'm listening. Angela pulled out a folder and set it on the porch table. Divorce papers. I'm willing to split everything 50-50. The house, the savings, everything. You walk away with half of what we built together. And in return, you drop the adultery claims. No public humiliation, no dragging our names through the mud. Clean break, no hard feelings. I picked up the papers and pretended to read them. What about Monica? Monica made her own choices, Angela said coldly. She's not our problem anymore. Interesting. Throwing her co-conspirator under the bus now that she was no longer useful. And Brad? I'll find another job, Brad said. We'll move away, start fresh somewhere else. Sounds like you've got it all figured out, I said. But I have a question. Why should I make this easy for you? Angela leaned forward, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the woman I'd married. Because despite everything that's happened, we had 12 good years together. That has to count for something. 12 good years, I repeated. Is that what you call it? The first 9 were good, she said quietly. The last 3, I don't know what happened to us, Nick. We just grew apart. We grew apart because you decided I wasn't good enough for you anymore, I said. Because you wanted something shinier, something that looked better at office parties. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended. You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what's fair. I stood up and walked to the porch railing looking out at the lake. Fair would have been you asking for a divorce before you started screwing Brad. Fair would have been Monica staying out of our marriage instead of helping you destroy my reputation. Fair would have been you treating me with the same respect I gave you for 12 years. You're right, Angela said, and there were tears in her voice. I handled this badly. I hurt you, and I'm sorry, but we can still end this with dignity. I turned back to face them, and both Angela and Brad flinched at whatever they saw in my expression. Dignity? I said quietly. You think you get to keep your dignity after what you've done? Nick, please. Here's my counteroffer, I interrupted you. You can have your divorce, but you're going to get exactly what you deserve. Nothing. The court will see evidence of your affair, your conspiracy with Monica, your attempts to frame me for domestic violence, and your theft of marital funds to pay for your little scheme. By the time my lawyer's done with you, you'll be lucky to keep your car. Angela's face went white. You can't prove any of that. I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo. Angela and Brad entering the hotel together, timestamp clearly visible. I can prove all of it, I said. Every hotel visit, every cash payment to Monica, every lie you told. I've got witnesses, documentation, and enough evidence to bury you both. Brad stood up abruptly. This is crazy. I'm out of here. Sit down, Brad, I said. And something in my voice made him freeze. We're not done talking. You can't keep us here, he said, but he sat back down. I'm not keeping you anywhere, I said. But if you leave now, you'll miss the best part of my story. I walked over to Brad's chair and leaned down close to his ear. See, I know about your little side business, Brad. The one where you sell cars with rolled back odometers. The one where you don't pay taxes on cash sales. The one that's going to get you 5 to 10 years in federal prison. Brad's face turned gray. How did you... I'm very thorough when I'm motivated, I said. Just like I was thorough when I found out that Monica's been skimming from her employer's accounts to pay for her gambling habit. Turns out she's been stealing money to fund your little campaign against me. Angela was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. You're not the man I married. No, I agreed. The man you married was naive enough to trust his wife and her friends. The man you married believed in things like loyalty and honesty. You ended that man, Angela. What you're looking at now is what's left. I walked back to the table and picked up the divorce papers. But you know what? You're right about one thing. We did have some good years, so I'm going to give you a choice. I tore the papers in half and let the pieces flutter to the porch floor. Option 1. We do this the hard way. I take everything I know to the police, the IRS, and anyone else who will listen. You, Brad, and Monica all go to prison, and I get everything in the divorce. What's option 2? Angela whispered. I smiled, and it was the coldest expression I'd ever worn. There is no option 2. You made your choice when you decided to destroy me. Now you get to live with the consequences. I turned and walked toward the porch steps, then paused and looked back at them. Oh, and Angela, my ex-girlfriend was better in bed than you'll ever be. I still think about her. I left them sitting there in stunned silence and drove back to town, feeling lighter than I had in months. The war was over, and I'd won more decisively than I'd ever imagined possible. But the best part was still to come. The Riverside Community Center hadn't seen this much excitement since the mayor's scandal 3 years ago. Tonight was the annual Founders' Day celebration, and it seemed like half the town had turned out for the barbecue, live music, and speeches from local dignitaries. I'd been planning this moment for 2 weeks, ever since Angela's pathetic attempt at negotiation at the cabin. She thought she could control the narrative, manage her image, and walk away from our marriage with her reputation intact. She was about to learn otherwise. Deshaun found me near the bandstand, where a local country group was setting up their equipment. You sure about this, brother? Once you do this, there's no going back. There was no going back the moment she decided to destroy me, I said. Besides, I'm just giving people the truth. Isn't that what everyone wants? The truth can be a dangerous thing. So can lies, I replied. Angela and Monica have been spreading lies about me for months. Time to set the record straight. The crowd was in a good mood, full of barbecue and beer, ready for the evening's entertainment. Mayor Davidson took the stage first, delivering his usual speech about community values and neighborly support. Then came the high school principal, the fire chief, and the head of the Chamber of Commerce. Finally, it was time for the open mic portion of the evening, where any resident could take the stage to address their neighbors. I'd signed up earlier, listing my topic as marriage and community values. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor announced, our next speaker is Nick Martinez, longtime resident and construction worker. Nick wanted to share some thoughts about marriage and community values. I walked onto the stage to polite applause, scanning the crowd until I found Angela. She was standing near the back with Brad, both of them looking confused and slightly worried. Monica was notably absent, probably still dealing with her legal troubles. Thank you, Mayor Davidson, I said, adjusting the microphone. I've lived in this community for 15 years. I've worked on many of your homes, helped build the new elementary school, and always tried to be a good neighbor and citizen. More applause. People were smiling, expecting a feel-good speech about small-town values. But tonight, I want to talk about something that's been troubling me lately, I continued. The breakdown of trust in our community. The way rumors and lies can spread faster than wildfire, destroying reputations and relationships. Angela was pushing through the crowd now, trying to get closer to the stage. Her face was pale and she was shaking her head frantically. See, my wife decided she wanted a divorce, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the crowd. That's her right, of course. But instead of being honest about it, she chose a different path. She chose to have an affair with her coworker, recruit her best friend to spread lies about me, and try to destroy my reputation in this community. The crowd went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Now, I'm not telling you this to embarrass anyone, I continued, though that was exactly what I was doing. I'm telling you this because I believe in truth. I believe in accountability, and I believe this community deserves to know when someone tries to manipulate them. Angela had reached the front of the crowd and was gesturing frantically for me to stop. Brad was nowhere to be seen. Probably made a run for it the moment he realized what was happening. My wife's friend, Monica, has been telling people I'm violent, that I've been threatening and mistreating my wife. She even vandalized Murphy's boxing gym to make her lies seem more credible. Fortunately, the police have security footage of her committing that crime, and she's currently facing charges. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People were turning to look at each other, processing this information. But here's the thing that really bothers me, I said, warming to my theme. It's not just that they lied about me. It's that they thought you were stupid enough to believe those lies without question. They thought they could manipulate this entire community to serve their selfish purposes. That's enough, Angela shouted from the crowd. You're humiliating yourself. I looked down at her and smiled. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, I'm just telling the truth. Something you might want to try sometime. The crowd was buzzing now, people talking among themselves, pointing at Angela. This was better than any soap opera. Now, I know some of you are thinking, why is he airing his dirty laundry in public? I continued. And that's a fair question. The answer is simple, because they made it public first. They involved all of you in their scheme. They used your trust, your friendship, your willingness to believe the worst about someone as tools against me. I paused, letting that sink in. So I want you to remember this moment, I said. Remember that sometimes the person claiming to be the victim is actually the villain. Remember that lies can sound very convincing when they're told by people you trust. And remember that the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is always better than a comfortable lie. Angela was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Several people had their phones out, recording the whole thing. This would be all over social media within the hour. In closing, I said, I want to thank my real friends, the people who stood by me when the rumors were flying, people like Deshaun Williams and Tommy Murphy, who knew me well enough to see through the lies. And I want to warn the rest of you, be careful who you trust. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones most willing to betray you. I stepped back from the microphone to stunned silence, then scattered applause that grew stronger as more people joined in. As I walked off the stage, I could hear the crowd buzzing with conversation. Angela intercepted me at the bottom of the steps, her face a mask of rage and humiliation. How could you do this to me? She hissed. In front of the whole town? The same way you tried to do it to me, I replied calmly. Except I had the advantage of telling the truth. This is harassment. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you again, especially after Monica's arrest made them take a closer look at your domestic violence claims. Angela's face crumpled. I never wanted it to go this far. I just wanted out. Then you should have asked for a divorce like an adult, I said. Instead, you chose to destroy me. Now you get to live with the consequences. I walked away, leaving her standing there as people stared and whispered. Deshaun was waiting for me near the parking lot, grinning from ear to ear. Man, that was brutal, he said. Remind me never to get on your bad side. It needed to be done, I said. She wanted to play games with my reputation. Now she gets to see what happens when someone plays those games better than she does. As we walked toward our cars, I heard a commotion behind us. Turning around, I saw Angela arguing with several women from her book club, their voices raised in accusation and denial. Her carefully constructed social network was collapsing in real time. You think this is over? Deshaun asked. For her? Yeah, it's over. She'll probably leave town within a month. Can't show her face around here anymore. What about you? I thought about that as I climbed into my truck. For me, it's just beginning. I've got a house to renovate, a reputation to rebuild, and a life to live. But at least now I can do it without looking over my shoulder. As I drove home, I passed Brad's car lot. A closed sign hung in the window, and several official-looking vehicles were parked out front. The IRS worked fast when they had solid evidence of tax evasion. My phone buzzed with a text from Kathy. Saw the video online, well played. Angela's lawyer called. She wants to settle out of court. You're going to get everything. I smiled and kept driving. Angela had wanted to play dirty, to destroy me through lies and manipulation. Instead, she'd handed me the tools of her own destruction. The truth, it turned out, was the most powerful tool of all. 3 months later, I was sitting on the porch of my house now, free and clear, watching the sunset and enjoying a beer. The divorce was final. Angela had moved to another state, and Monica was serving 6 months in county jail for vandalism and filing false reports. Brad had disappeared entirely after his business collapsed and the federal charges were filed. Word was he'd fled to Mexico, but nobody seemed particularly interested in finding him. The phone rang, interrupting my peaceful evening. I almost didn't answer, but the caller ID showed my daughter Sarah's number. She was in college now, and we'd been slowly rebuilding our relationship after Angela's lies nearly destroyed it. Hey, Dad, she said. I just wanted to call and say I'm proud of you. Proud of me? For fighting back, for not letting them destroy you. I know it wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, I admitted. But sometimes you have to fight for the truth. Mom called me last week, Sarah said quietly. She wanted me to ask you to stop the internet videos from spreading. I laughed. Tell your mother that the internet is forever. She should have thought about that before she decided to humiliate me in public. I told her the same thing, Sarah said. Dad, I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. After she hung up, I sat back in my chair and reflected on the past year. Angela had tried to destroy me through lies and manipulation, but she'd underestimated one crucial thing. I was a better strategist than she was. She'd played checkers while I was playing chess. The best part wasn't the money or the house or even the satisfaction of seeing her humiliated. The best part was knowing that I'd fought back against injustice and won. I'd refused to be a victim, refused to let lies become truth, and refused to let bullies win. As the stars came out and the neighborhood settled into evening quiet, I raised my beer in a toast to the empty street. To new beginnings, I said aloud, and to the last laugh.